Three, two, one, and come on. And we are recording episode 370. Back on the show is Claire Lopez by popular demand. Well, actually, I was going to have you back on anyway, but clearly everyone enjoys having you on. And I watched someone after you were on last week, someone commented about a Club K missile system, and I looked at that. I looked at that last night. And that will be another episode for another time. But today, you are going to talk about the red, black, green axis, correct?
All right, sounds good. And of course, glad to be back with you.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming on. And for everybody, all the new listeners, Claire, you worked in the CIA for introduce yourself, please.
Sure. So I am Claire Lopez. I am the founder and president of Lopez Liberty LLC, just now 1 year old. Still working on a website, by the way, that's coming. But I began my career after grad school with 20 years in the DO of the CIA, working the Russia target. After that, I did contracting with a number of federal contracting companies, and then gravitated to the think tank world in Washington, D.C., but always focused on national security issues. Russia in my early years, obviously. After 9/11, though, my focus shifted to the Middle East and a focus on Iran, of course, because it was the director and the instigator of the 9/11 attacks, together with the Saudis, Taliban, and Al Qaeda, and of course Hezbollah. And then broadened out really in the last year to do a bit of a deep dive on China, which had never been a focus of mine before, but it is now. But always national security issues, and then bringing it back home, to our target, our topic for today, the red, black, green axis. I've been speaking to many different groups about the communist, Marxist, Leninist, Maoist revolution that is attempting to topple our constitutional republic right now. And that is very much backed by the Chinese Communist Party.
Do you think, and this is, I mean, by the way, last week's episode, that was just not planned, but we ended up talking about COVID. That was banned from Facebook
Oh
for
dear.
inciting disinformation and propagating violence, which I was unaware that we did, but apparently we did. So I guess hats off to us. I don't know, but
No, we would never
never,
instigate violence. Of
never,
all things, not.
never.
No.
I thought we were just discussing topics like free citizens, but apparently not. But what aspects do you think that the CCP are infiltrating the U.S. right now? Is it the same old, we all have operations in other countries, or, in my opinion, do you think that they have sown their seeds deep within the U.S. government and they are now enacting change from within?
Well, I'll point us all in the direction of a speech that was given not so long ago. It might have been late 2020, early 21. And it was by, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, a dean at the Renmin University of China.
Mm-hmm.
And his name was Diu Daosheng. And he was speaking to a large audience in an auditorium. It looked like it might have been at the university. He's up on the stage with a microphone. The speech itself is professionally filmed. It's not somebody's cell phone camera. It's professionally filmed. It was meant to get out. And what he said in the speech was that for a very long time, he meant decades, the Chinese Communist Party worked to infiltrate American institutions. And that means academia through such things, of course, as the Confucius Institutes, but also industry and business by co-opting them to or tempting them to contracts in the great big market that China is, 1.4 plus billion people there, very tempting. Industry and business. Wall Street, he specifically mentioned inroads into Wall Street. And then obviously every level of our government, from the lowest local level. Look at an Eric Swalwell, recruited while he was at the city council level in California. Now, where does he sit? On the Intelligence Committee of the House of Representatives. So all of those institutions were penetrated over a period of many years. We can think about, for example, the long march through the institutions attributed to the Italian communist Antonio Gramsci, right? Took a long time. They were patient about it, but very methodical. And at this point, they have infiltrated all of those institutions, and we are very much under threat from within by the Chinese Communist Party. More recently now, of course, there are demonstrable open connections to the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't know if we talked about this last time or not, but for example, we know that the Black Lives Matter movement was founded by 3 African-American self-avowed Marxist women, Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrisse Cullors. Alicia Garza in particular oversees a broad network of affiliated organizations. So Black Lives Matter is a movement. It's a network of groups. It's not just one group. Although it was founded by these 3, it's broad and spanned out to be a whole network of groups. Well, one of those groups that Alicia Garza manages is called Black Futures Lab. Now, Black Futures Lab has a website, and you can go to it. And if you click on the donate button, at least when I went there some time ago, weeks ago, that donate button will take you to another page of the Black Futures Lab website. And there on that page, it says quite explicitly, Black Futures Lab is a fiscal project of the Chinese Progressive Association. Well, what is the Chinese Progressive Association? We learn from Trevor Loudon, to whom I would recommend all of your audience to look up Trevor Loudon, Loudon. We learned that Chinese Progressive Association is a front group for the Chinese Communist Party. So there, right there, is one at least demonstrable direct link between the Chinese Communist Party and the Black Lives Matter movement. So yes, long way of saying the CCP is deeply embedded in many of our national institutions.
So they have a paramilitary arm in the United States, and what is
Well, I wouldn't call it paramilitary, no. It's more of an intelligence operation. It's influence operations. It's co-option, penetration, but not paramilitary, no.
okay? That was a jump I made. Just thinking of riots in 2020, physical bullying, physical threat of physical violence. That's where I made the jump, paramilitary. But
Well, that's the Black Lives Matter movement, not the Chinese per se. But I can give you another example if you'd like one.
please do.
So we may recall that back, I think it was 2019, when then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo closed the Houston consulate
Mm-hmm.
of the Chinese government. And the reasons given were that they were engaging in activities not compatible with their diplomatic status, as the language goes. They were engaging in espionage and intellectual property theft in the Houston area, which is a very high-tech area of Texas. And those things are true. They were doing those things, and they should have been closed down for that. But according to Radio Free Asia, a website that unfortunately affiliated with Voice of America, that apparently is getting the hatchet from the Biden team. But in any case, according to that website, back earlier in 2019, maybe early 2020, probably in 2020 is what I should say, in 2020, but dating back. I mean, this is when it became published, is what I mean to say. It was published then. But dating back, what happened is that the Chinese Communist Party sent an undercover unit of the People's Liberation Army to the Houston consulate under diplomatic cover. And their mission, their job was to compile, using AI techniques, compile a list of Americans they thought would be susceptible to the rhetoric, to the memes and the narratives of revolution, of communist revolution. And eventually, as time went on, that they would be amenable to hitting the streets for revolution, for communism. And they compiled the list, and then they created TikTok videos. TikTok, of course, is an AI collection platform for the Chinese Communist Party. I hope all listeners and the kids in your families all know that. You never, ever, ever click or open on a TikTok video.
I never
But
have.
then they pushed out their messaging out of the Houston consulate, pushed it out using TikTok videos on how to riot in the streets. And that was another reason that that consulate got closed. And again, I'm forgetting exactly which year. It must have been in 2020 that it was
I
closed.
think it was.
Yeah, not 2019, because it's 2020 when the rioting, engulfed our city. So apologize for that mix up there, but 2020, let's say, and that's part of the influence operations that the CCP was conducting here in America and out of that Houston consulate. Now, the Beijing regime has consulates in more than just one place, Houston. They, of course, have the main embassy in Washington, D.C. They've got a United Nations mission in New York City. And then they used to have 5 other consulates around the United States. In New York City, that would be in addition to the UN mission. So New York City, Houston, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So now -1, they've got 4 left, including the 2 in California, where arguably much more of this kind of subversive activity is carried out. But they remain open in San Francisco and Los Angeles up until now. Can't see that that'll change in the near future now.
So let's jump to the taboo that is the big tech verboten topic. Was the 2020 election stolen? And if so, did the CCP have a hand in it?
Well, if you think about, how the CCP was involved in these street riots, fomenting, encouraging, instigating them, that certainly played a role in the state of the nation come last November 2020. So that was certainly an influence. But if you mean in terms of ballot harvesting, illicit ballots, the Dominion voting machines and associated software, the wheeling in of thousands upon thousands of ballots in the middle of the night in contested districts. The one connection to China that I have seen reported is this. And that is, I think you can probably find this at Gateway Pundit, maybe some other places too. But this is what I read, that in Fulton County, Georgia, there were tens of thousands, of course, of ballots that miraculously appeared in the middle of the night. It happened in other places too, but that county, which includes Atlanta, Georgia, was one of them. And in the aftermath of the election, ballots were ordered to be, the paper ballots, that is, were ordered to be preserved and collected and made available for inspection. And that's in addition to any inspection on the machines themselves, the tabulator machines or the servers, Dominion servers and so forth. This is the paper ballots. Well, what happened then is that in Fulton County, anyway, many, many thousands of pounds of ballots, instead of being preserved and turned over for inspection, were loaded onto trucks for shredding. They called in these shredder companies, shredder trucks that will shred on the spot. You feed the paper in, and they shred right there. And apparently, law enforcement was alerted to this ongoing activity. This was taking place in November last year, 2020. Local law enforcement apparently was alerted to these shenanigans, came on the scene. Most everything had been shredded already, but according to the reports I read and heard, some ballots kind of stuck to the side of the interior of the truck. They didn't get through the shredding machine. And so there were not only paper ballots that somehow were preserved whole, but also some shipping labels from China.
Jesus
Paper
Christ.
paper shipping labels from China stuck to the side of the vehicles inside, and they hadn't gone through the shredding. As I understand it, those documents were removed from the truck and preserved. I do not know exactly what happened to them after that, but that is one report.
Well, for just as a side note, Claire, I can't wait to occupy a cell with you in a gulag when we are both thrown away for discussing wrongthink. But so regardless of China, so let's just chop off China from that earlier question. Was the 2020 election stolen? Because I'm trying to be very self-aware. I can't laugh at my liberal friends for 4 years about thinking that Trump is Russian. I can't then turn and start beating the drums myself. It was China, it's China. I'm trying very hard to look at it as, do I think the election was stolen, or are these my own biases that don't want me to just kind of take the loss on the chin? I'm okay with taking a loss. It sucks, but you get better. You come back the next day. You come back the next election and try harder. My gut feeling is that what I watched live on TV, all those states pausing in the middle of the night, is that something fishy happened, and there are massive implications for that, because it's not just, well, we'll get him next time. Was the actual electoral process subverted and sabotaged? In which case, is there not a duly elected president right now?
Well, a great many people are now very doubtful about the legitimacy of that election. And for any of you all that watched, for example, the proceedings in the different legislatures,
Mm-hmm.
Arizona held hearings, Michigan did, let's see, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and I think Wisconsin. I didn't get to see all of them, but I watched a lot of it, in which, if you did watch, you saw a lot of experts of different kinds, mathematical experts, experts in probability and statistics, experts in such things as the actual machinery, as I said before, the servers, the tabulators used, Dominion software, and so forth. And you heard their testimony. And that testimony was voluminous, in addition to how many thousands upon thousands of sworn signed affidavits from ordinary citizens who had seen some part of the process that made them concerned and want to step forward to give their testimony. And they did, by the thousands. So you look at all of that, you look at the lawsuits that have been brought in different states, and some, by the way, are still wending their way through courts. Now, unfortunately, it seems that many of our courts, on up to the Supreme Court, wanted nothing to do with any of this, and without even hearing the evidence in testimony brought before them, they dismissed a lot of cases. In my opinion, that's evidence of rank cowardice, if not complicity. But let's watch the remaining cases that are making their way. But I can't disagree with you, Tommy, that an awful lot of Americans have had their confidence in our electoral process shaken to the core.
Yeah, and I've said this a million times. Anyone that regularly listens know this. I voted for Obama when I was 18. I was pre-med in college. I voted for Romney. I didn't want Obamacare. I lost a brother to suicide in 2014, so I voted for Bernie in the primaries in 2016. I wanted mental health care for all. I didn't vote in the final election. And in 2020, I voted for Trump. I'm 30 years old. I've voted on both sides of the aisle 2 times. So to those that may turn off their brain to, oh, this is just a white guy with blue eyes in front of an American flag. He's a Nazi. Yeah, I've heard it all a million times before, right? Is that no? Like I'm hey, Obama won in when I was 18. Yeah, he won. Romney lost. I was furious. Obamacare is going to destroy the profession, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? 72 hours go by and you go, hey, I'm in a country it's not Tommy country. It's a country of 300 million. There was an election. Your guy didn't win. Respect the institution. 2016, the guy I wanted Bernie to be the candidate. He didn't get it. Hey, you take it on the chin, whatever. I'm okay with that. It sucks, but I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is was it was it stolen? Was it taken away? And I know this wasn't supposed to be the topic of the podcast, but something that like it's a splinter in my brain, and I can't remove it because hey, he won, dude. Stop freaking out about it. And it's well, no, hold on. It's because I look at things. I look at like unrestricted warfare. I look at the Warring States period. I look at the entire Chinese doctrine. The analogy I always use is if you wanted to destroy NORAD, the nuclear hardened bunker in Cheyenne Mountain, well, if even a nuclear weapon can't do it, you and some friends with a block of C4 can't do it. But there's an easier way to do it. Find someone that has an access key and kidnap them and take their access key. They can go within, they can destroy it from within. The Chinese know they can't take on the US military. Nobody can. It's the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. That's not an opinion, that's just an objective fact. There's a much easier way to do it. We just so happen to have our president is also the commander in chief. There's a much easier way to take down the US military, and it's from getting to the top and then legislating down. That's my fear. Is it's not maybe it is my own cognitive dissonance. Maybe it's, hey man, Trump lost, get over it. Maybe it is. I'm very open to that. And I wish it was. I wish that I truly believed Biden won because I'd be like, that sucks. Okay, whatever. It's the next time to the next election. To me, it seems that we witnessed a soft coup, and I can't shake that. I can't. You hear people saying, "Well, you know what? All those Republicans that didn't side with Trump, they're all going to be primaried in 2022." With what? Through Dominion? Like primary what? It's not going to happen. How is it going to happen? It's not going to. It's just not going to work. So it's just. It seems like it was stolen, and I'm desperately searching for information to tell me otherwise because I I will be happy if Trump just lost. Okay, like he lost, but it seems like there's been a subversive element, regardless if it was China, regardless if it was Madagascar. Who cares? It wasn't natural, and and then even creepier is it went up all when you see none of these cases or none of these courts take it. Well, now it's like, have all the courts been? Is it just cowardice, as you said? Or is it worse? Have they been infiltrated by the CCP? Are we just witnessing a takeover decades in the making, and now it's too late? Is it?
Well,
It's
let's back up a little bit, and I hate to burst your Bernie bubble,
yeah.
um, but there are a couple other things that folks might have a look at if they've the time and the inclination. One of them is the Communist Manifesto,
Hmm.
written in 1848 by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Um, and it lists right in the middle of the manuscript. It's not very long. It's an easy, quick read, of course, in English. But they list the objectives of communism, which include abolish all private property, nationalize the banks, take over all means of communication. This is spelled out in these many words in the Communist Manifesto of 1848. Now, a little heavier reading, um, and that goes back to last year in 2020, and it's something called the let's see, it come to be known as the Bernie Biden Manifesto. That's its sort of nickname that Trump used to use, but it was a task force of recommendations. I think the Unity Task Force
Isn't
Recommendations
it,
is the formal
isn't
name
there
of it.
like 19
You can find
recommended?
that in a
Wasn't there?
search
It
online.
wasn't it called like 19 recommend or some? I
No,
think.
it's way more than 19. It's
Oh,
110 pages, first of all, which I've read. So each part of that, it was laid out in sections, right? So there was a section on education and a section on the economy and a section on healthcare and so forth. And each section had its own little team, its own little task force of writers, of those who drafted that part of the document. And if you want to know who's running the Democrat Party today, go have a look at that document, not just for its content, yes, its content, but for those who drafted the sections. No, it was not Joe Biden, but absolutely Bernie Sanders had a part in it. Other party leadership, Elizabeth Warren and others had parts in those different sections, right? One more document last year as well, and that's the 2020 Democrat Party national platform. And that mercifully came down to only 45 pages, was distilled from the larger Unity Task Force of recommendations. But now take the Communist Manifesto, take the Unity Task Force, Bernie Biden Manifesto, and take the Democrat Party 2020 platform. Lay them side by side. You don't even have to read the whole things, just skim them. Lay them side by side. And after you do that, you tell me if there's a hair's breadth of difference among them. I will tell you
jeez,
there is not.
jeez.
Everything from the Communist Manifesto was expanded into the Bernie Biden Manifesto. That's why Trump called it that. And then eventually the Democrat Party platform. It is pure communism
For
that they
for
intend and are attempting to foist upon this country.
for the record, when you said burst your Bernie bubble, I felt like an idiot within like 6 months of voting for him in the primary. Just for the record, this isn't some like this has been 4 years
Okay.
now where I'm just like, but the point is the reason I bring it up is I'm embarrassed to have voted for him. But the reason why I bring it up is, well, one, personally, just personal growth. I try to own everything I've done. But two is also I try to point to that to just say, I'm not lockstep one or the other. The fact that I voted for him shows that I'm not this lockstep, Republican, and before that Romney, before that Obama. So
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
point of me always bringing that up is my sort of like, this isn't me, a conservative that just can't take a loss. Is
Yeah.
I try to say it as like I've been an idiot. I've been on both sides, but the point is my worry is bipartisan, and it
Yeah.
seems like that's what they're doing though, right?
Well, and I mean, the old saying, right? If you're not a liberal when you're
When you're
young, you
young, you
have
don't
no
have a
heart,
heart.
and later on, if you
If you're
are
not
not a
conservative.
conservative, you have no brain.
Oh yeah.
So
So
you're doing fine. You're
okay,
well on
okay.
your way.
I'm developing. Good. That's all I want is as long as I'm growing. But I mean, but we see it right now, right? And it always starts with just a little, right? We see got to get rid of Alex Jones for Sandy Hook. Everyone's okay, sure. You got to get rid of Milo, but okay. But then it just done, 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 and now it's left, right, left. Yesterday, I saw something. I saw a Twitter account banned because someone posted something that what was it? Circulated disinformation about NATO. Now that was a first. I had never seen that. Before that, it was always election fraud. But there was a new Twitter banner about circulating misinformation about NATO. But the point is it doesn't matter if it's NATO or it's about your grandma's garlic bread recipe. The point is they are moving acceptance to what is okay, and it's
Well,
banning
and that is
censorship.
number. I'm going to
That
grab
yeah, communism. Yeah,
my little manifesto over here. Um, yeah, number 6 in this list of 10 that I mentioned, you know, number 6 is centralization of the means of communication in the hands of the state. That's what it says.
yeah, big tech
Now,
and
the
yeah,
fact that the big tech companies are the stalking horse for our central government was not something possible to have been foreseen by our founding fathers when they wrote the Declaration and the Constitution and Bill of Rights. They couldn't have possibly foreseen big tech, but that's what we've got right now. Big tech is the cat's paw or the stalking horse for our centralized, increasingly centralized, authoritarian, totalitarian government.
Hmm. And it's becoming more and more the norm, and it's becoming right. It's quiet. It's shadow banning, and it's, if you don't like Twitter, make your own Twitter. So you make a parlor. Well, then you have AWS knock it off. I mean, not only is it, are we going to control what you say, but don't you dare leave the realm in which you're allowed to talk. You have to talk within this platform, and you'll know whether or not, well, actually, sorry, you
Well,
won't know whether or not you've been shadow
no,
banned.
because what are they talking about now? Appointing at the White House a reality czar?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how much more 1984 Orwellian can you possibly get?
Realities. I mean, it's mine, but okay, conspiracy theorist, but it's happening right now. So the point I bring up is this is something that I always fall back on, and my brain can't really comprehend or compute the level between the two. As much as I saw the election get stolen, and as sure as I am that my skin is white and that the sun's gonna rise, I saw that happen. However, at the same time, I look at everything I've learned about or studied about the United States government during the Cold War, from Truman through Reagan, the amount of contingency plans they had, the nuclear bunkers, the relocation arc, the secondary, tertiary, quaternary UHF systems to be able to launch our nukes, everything in between. They're so well prepared that when I see something like the 2020 election, part of me thinks, do I really think that the military industrial complex and the intelligence community, MIC and IC, do I really think that I know something? When I'm sitting here, I'm like, does nobody seen that the election was stolen, and that this is the beginning of a communist takeover and there's no more free elections? Whenever I find myself getting worked up about that, I think, do I really think that they didn't see it? And do I really think that they're just, oh, I guess the Chinese pulled a fast one on us, boys. We had a good run for
Yeah, no,
245
when
years.
I said that all of our institutions had been penetrated and co-opted, I mean all.
So,
I
okay.
mean the US military as well.
Oh,
Look at
Jesus.
what's going on in the curricula at the service academies, for example. Look at the curricula and what's being taught now at the staff and command colleges. Look at what General Lloyd Austin just decreed from on high. What is it, 6 weeks, 6 month, I forget,
100,
stand down.
100-day stand down.
Oh, okay, 100-day stand down of the US military so they can address
White supremacy.
white supremacy in the ranks. I mean, our enemies are just looking at us as if we've lost our minds, and they never dreamed it could be so easy. But this has been a long time in coming, and that was my point in bringing up the Communist Manifesto, and the 1917 revolution in Russia, the Frankfurt School coming to America. All of these things have a very long lead time. This did not happen overnight, even though it may feel like it's collapsing upon us overnight. The groundwork was laid a long time ago. This has been a long time in coming.
So the question then comes, is there a silver lining? Is there
No,
a
there's
pay?
no civil lining, but there is something for us to do, we
Okay.
citizen patriots, and that is go back to where the founders started, and that's at the local level. That means at your local patriotic group level. Today, we have modern means of communication like radio that they didn't have then, social media, whatever we still can avail ourselves of, and get back to that local level, the pulpits, and maybe, yeah, the taverns. That's where they met, right?
Mm-hmm.
And homes,
Coffee
but
houses.
local patriotic citizen groups who get together to talk about the issues, to talk about new young candidates, perhaps, that they would like to get behind, brief up and support for coming elections. Um, and then how to reach officials already in office, but don't forget the local level. I always emphasize this, meaning school board, library board, city council, and then, yeah, on up to state legislature levels. But work again at those levels to pursue policies, to emphasize policies that we, the people, would like to see emphasized. And that's how it has to happen from the grassroots up, because the saving of the republic is not going to happen inside the Beltway or on Capitol Hill. Just not.
So my question is this then: Are there no? Again, I look at someone like Donald Trump, right? This is a like him or not, like Biden or not, like Hillary or not. They're intelligent people. He knows everything that you and I are saying right now. If let's assume that. Let's take that assumption. If he knew all of this and he's watching with access to intelligence sources and feeds that I certainly don't have, and he watched this happen, and he's watching a communist coup happen, I feel like, at least if I was in office, I would say, like, no, like, I'll surround the military around the White House. You can't.
Hold. I mean, hold right there.
Okay.
I think we must not assume that he had all of this intelligence feeding to him.
Okay.
I think that's a mistake to assume that.
I think they were
Um,
infiltrated.
he was not necessarily getting all the information that we now have seen or heard about at the time in a timely manner. He simply was not.
So are there no, and maybe this is because and I get told this a lot. I mean, I am admittedly uh, naively optimistic. It's kind of the only way I manage to kind of keep going every day. And I mean, not to pull it back, but after my brother's suicide, I found I was like, if I don't stay like supremely optimistic, I'm gonna end up killing myself. So that's how I stay optimistic.
Mhm.
But ultimately, maybe it's not a good carryover into geopolitics and communism and the technocratic socialists and Marxists. Are there no people like yourself or myself
Oh,
still
yes.
within the upper echelons that are having this conversation
Yes. Yeah,
probably off the
yes.
grid and going, how do we, I have my podcast and I'll die on this hill trying to spread the word and trying to pass information about what's going on in the world. But are there no guys in the upper
There
echelons
are a
of
few. Yes,
Okay,
yes, absolutely. And we can name some of them: a Jim Jordan, a Matt Gaetz, a Louis Gohmert, and I don't want to be leaving people out, a Marsha
sure.
um, Marsha Blackburn out of Tennessee, governors like DeSantis in Florida, Kristi Noem in South Dakota. Yes, there are wonderful leaders, conservative, patriotic leaders. Yes, but that's not what's going to save us.
Okay.
Now, Governor DeSantis may very well be able to save Florida, and Governor Noem may very well be able to save South Dakota. But if you're talking about save the republic, save the constitutional republic, that's got to be the grassroots.
Okay.
That's got to be us, we the
Okay.
people.
So there's no way, I'm just thinking, at what point would they not just declare all out war on China? Or
Who?
have we been exactly? So have we been infiltrated so much that who's going to declare war? They're
Well, I
sympathizers,
mean, the power to declare war rests with the Congress.
and they're all infiltrated. So
I mean, but do we really want to declare war on China, or do we want to implement measures like, for example, separating our supply chain
mhm,
from products made in China, and particularly made by slave labor in China?
Foxconn,
And that's a business and an industrial thing that needs to be encouraged, maybe with tax breaks, for example, by Congress, legislation that offers tax breaks to relocate supply chains elsewhere, bring it back home for at home manufacturing, those kinds of things. Um, do we need to impress upon the leadership of our academic institutions like universities that having a Confucius Institute on campus and having professors who hide and conceal their financial relationships with the CCP is not a very good idea. Should we be working together to impress upon our public health um, uh, industry, our public health infrastructure in the country, that working directly with laboratories in China, like the Wuhan Institute of Virology in Wuhan, China, is probably not a good idea. This is not declaring war on China. This is taking common sense steps to separate ourselves from China, from influence from China. Do we really need to have well over 300,000 Chinese students in the United States studying at the higher echelons of our universities, studying computer science, nuclear science, engineering, different technologies, and under the law of China, which obligates each and every one of them to share, to steal information, to share information that they get while students here in the United States with the Ministry of State Security in China, their intelligence ministry. Is that a very good idea? These are the kinds of things that we, the people, should be doing and can be doing. This is not declaring war on China. This is just common sense.
But okay. But can it? So, which always brings me back to the election. No efforts matter if there's not a fair election. It doesn't matter if I get, and I'm not trying to be like a negative person, but I mean, let's say I go get into local politics. I start going from the local level. I start paying attention to the news. I start doing all this. What does it even matter if any position of
Okay,
power is gate kept
right.
by these machines?
So back to the local level, at your district level, at your county level, and maybe state level. How about querying your elected officials? Do you have Dominion hardware and or derivative software in the system of this district, of this county? And if you do, we the people want it taken out toot sweet before any next elections. And make sure that those local elected officials know that there are many local citizen patriots behind that query, and that if they ignore those citizens, they will not have the support of those citizens in any kind of future campaign.
Which, again, what would they care if they have support in a campaign? If the campaign is
Overwhelming numbers.
okay.
Overwhelming numbers. Remember in the last election, how the algorithms got overwhelmed in the middle of the night. That's why they stopped the count in those key battleground states, right? That's the reason they had to stop, because the algorithms they'd already pre-programmed in got overwhelmed by the numbers of Trump votes. That's the answer. Overwhelming numbers.
It's just infuriating. And that's what I tell everyone that listens to this podcast is I have a very indirect way of doing what I can. I try to get on bigger and bigger guests, more interesting guests, because I think the more interesting people I have on here, the more followers I get, the more subscribers I get, the more I can also bring up topics like this. So whereas I may have on a guy that swims with sharks and then have on a model and then whatever, things that have nothing to do with a CCP takeover of America. What happens though is it does increase the size of my audience to then allow me to go, I'm going to have on Claire Lopez and we're going to talk about the 2020 election. So it's like getting to the Super Bowl halftime show by being a pretty face, but then getting up there and being like the election was stolen by subversive elements loyal to the CCP. It's a roundabout way.
Well, I
So
hope I fall into the pretty face category.
absolutely, I certainly don't. But that's how I go about this. So my way of doing, anybody listening or Claire yourself, is please, if you have anyone interesting, bring them to the podcast. Tell them to please come on Tommy's podcast at gmail.com, because by growing it up in a different way, I can sort of attack it from a different angle. If you can't
Well,
go through it,
send
hit
me
it
the
from the
link
side.
again, and I'll push it out as far as I can.
Please do. And if there's anyone you know from your time working in the CIA or even what you're doing now, anyone remotely that has any interest in anything, I can talk to anybody. Please, please ask them to do this podcast because people may roll their eyes, but there is a direct effect to what I think down the road will lead to a bigger voice of people. It's just not in a traditional channel. If you get up and say, I'm going to talk about the election and COVID, they'll shut you down. If you grow a podcast through unconventional means and guests, it allows you to Trojan horse a message once the platform gets large enough. So that's my tactic right now, and I hope it's working. I don't know if it's working, but I'm trying to make it work. It's that again, what I use is when people say, Tommy, if you just shut up about the election and shut up about COVID, your podcast would be so much bigger. You get so much more money. My logic is this is my grandfather's brother, my great uncle Rich, rest in peace, was 18 years old on Omaha Beach and D-Day on Normandy.
Mm.
My burden is a lot less than his. I have to get on a podcast and say some unfriendly terms or, not be inclusive to gender fluid, whatever. That's my burden. That's the beach I have to storm. It's pretty simple compared to actually storming a beach in Normandy. So I think it's pretty minimal. And I asked everyone that's listening, it's pretty minimal for you. Please, if you know anyone interesting in your life, please get them to come on the podcast. Leave a comment. Please email me, tommyspodcast@gmail.com. And Claire, to you as well. Anyone interesting, anyone that please send them along to me because that's how I'm going to try to grow this podcast. And that's how I'm going to try to circulate truth. And at least while we still can post it on social media.
Terrific. I think it's
Yeah.
a great medium. And I especially like that it's a good medium for you to reach perhaps a younger contingent, because very often we'll find ourselves talking to a more mature audience.
Mhm.
And your age group, which is the age group of my daughter, is so important to reach. And I think that's what you're doing. So I think, good job.
Thank you very much. Claire Lopez, any closing thoughts?
Well, I'll just mention that you may follow me at Claire M. Lopez on Twitter. My name, Claire M. Lopez, at Facebook also. I write at newsmax.com on my own blog there occasionally. You can find me at Citizens Commission on National Security, American Truth Project with Barry Nussbaum, very important platform also, and also with Brandon Howes at World View Weekend. So all of those might be of interest, but you can follow me and find me there. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yeah, I'll post all those links. Everybody listening, I'll post all those links in the description, sticky in the top comment. And I know I completely derailed this conversation of the red, black, green axis.
Okay,
So
next time.
we'll have to do a next time with that.
It's
And
okay.
I would still, and then the next time, I still want to do the K Club missile system because I
Okay.
listened to one of your interviews from last night, and that was terrifying. I legitimately didn't sleep well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't, I don't think you are. I think that's the purpose of your interview, which is good. Don't be
I'm not
sorry.
trying to disrupt people's peaceful sleep, but yeah,
I don't know. I feel like that's the least of our problems.
pretty serious topics to be sure. But thank you for covering them. Thanks for taking on the tough issues. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. Thanks for coming on. It's a blast.
Okay,
And yeah, all right.
I will
Thank you so
catch you
much,
next
Claire.
time then.
Absolutely.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so
much.
much. All right.
All right.
Goodbye. Goodbye. God bless America.